Hey there, thanks for clicking. I was hoping to share with you my experience when my wife and I tried to take our love of permaculture, combine it with her hobby of chicken raising, and my joy of using aquaponics to grow vegetables from fish, and kind of combine it all in a next level way in our yard. I'd already done aquaponics for quite a while in the basement, and it went okay. I grew some basic greens and things like that. And I had some successes. I mean, I don't know, some might say massive successes, but I don't want to brag too much. I mean, check out this strawberry. Pretty badass, right? I mean, maybe it's not as big as it looks on camera, but, still, you can't really argue with, like my kohlrabi, for instance. My kohlrabi's pretty impressive. Look at that thing. Here, I put it next to my cat for scale. See? Big as his head. Anyway, we decided to build a greenhouse in our backyard from this plot of land and basically try to combine it with her chicken coop and use it to grow food for the chickens to eat. And the water in the aquaponics tank could keep the chickens warm in the winter, and it was supposed to all work in harmony. And it did to some degree, but mostly we learned a lot. Let's say that. So anyway, I wanted to share some of our slides. This is what it looked like before, and then I got the greenhouse, and I started to building. Got it from like Harbor Freight or something like that. Wasn't super expensive one, but it got the job done. A pretty minor little greenhouse. So I bought that, threw it together, and started buying the other supplies. I bought this pump to circulate the water in the bigger tank I'll be using, and I got this big old tank from like Tractor Supply, which seemed like a good idea until I realized that you shouldn't use zinc lead tanks for fish tanks. But that's one of the things I learned. I guess I'll skip to that one right away. Anyway, this is us when we first got the greenhouse put in. You can see it's a pretty basic greenhouse so far. There's not a lot to it, and there's not a lot around it. My wife decided she was going to grow some plants around it as well. And spoiler alert, she had more luck growing plants around the greenhouse than I had in the greenhouse, but there you go. I'm still learning, and that's what this is all about. So yeah, we had to find a way to take this greenhouse and turn it into a chicken coop. You can see we have the old chicken coop over there in the corner, and I figured I would cut a hole between the two and just use them both. So that was my plan. So I got one of these zip saw things, as you can see, cut a big old hole in it, and then started building the coop part. Here I am on the outside with a dog kennel that we also added for added security. And here's the beginning of the construction of the coop. Places for the chickens to sit. Some wire to keep the chickens from my tank. And then we started growing the chickens. Aren't they cute? My cat decided to help. Remarkably, the chickens were not afraid at that age. Anyway, so this is the start, like I said. And these are my dogs. Or they were my dogs. And yeah, I'm building a wood frame. I decided I'd split it in half, basically try to keep the chickens away from the plants while they're growing, even though eventually they'd be for the chickens. That was the idea. So I had to build a wood frame, and then I started working on the aquaponics setup. So these were the pipes for the strawberries I wanted to grow. I was going to try to beat my previous best. And these are the tanks, the bigger tanks I was going to use for the rocks for the aquaponics. So see how all that worked. So here I am coming back to the greenhouse again. This took a lot of time. There's my dog again. And let me just show you what we got so far at this stage of the game. My wife's already started planting her plants, as you can see. And if you go inside the greenhouse, I have the tank set up. I have the different bins for the plants. And we have the chickens in there. Look how old they are already. Chickens grow fast. And then this is the hose setup. I have it going from the tank, pumping the water out, through the tubes, hopefully feeding strawberries, going back into the rock bed to grow chicken feed and things like that, and then cycling through. I was trying to grow koi, so that was the idea. Overall, it worked pretty well. I had some successes for sure. My koi got to a healthy size, and they fouled up the water as they're meant to do, and then that water fed all the plants, and the plants grew, and the chickens ate the plants, and that all worked good, and the water got clean, and the chickens got healthy, as you can see with my wife here, and then they got eggs. So that all worked great. And then it was time for me to move on to the last step, which was the solar power. I got my solar panel hooked up to my generator, and my generator was running the pump for the tank. And plus it could also keep the chickens' water warm in the wintertime, and it could help keep the tank warm in the wintertime as well, was kind of the idea. So I got all that going. So what went wrong? Why wasn't it a success? Well, unfortunately, I lost some fish. My fish just started dying, and I'm not sure why. Could have been the zinc tank, like I already mentioned. Could have been just the harsh climate, but fish were dying. I mean, I live in Minnesota where it gets crazy cold, unfortunately, and it was not a great setup for this temperature, for this climate. So that could be it. This might have worked better if we would done it in a warmer, temperate climate. Maybe South Carolina, something like that. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, it didn't work great for Minnesota. I need to try to come up with a greenhouse that has walls on it, perhaps on the sides that don't get direct sun, and come up with a better system for the chickens. But right now, the chickens still live in it. They're still making eggs, but my fish and plants aren't growing aquaponically anymore. So that's the setup, and if you have any questions or have any suggestions, I'd love to hear more, because we might try this again in the future, because it was a fun experiment. I should say that the chickens are really dusty, and dust got all over the plants, which was kind of a drag. That didn't happen in my basement. So I learned that as well. So although permaculturally it was nice to think we could get everything working in unison, it never quite got the way we wanted it to. It ended up being a greenhouse chicken coop, which is still kind of cool. Thanks for watching.